Good afternoon. I'm Shannon de Rehove. Welcome to today's webinar on the future of mining in West Africa, hosted on behalf of Wampex, the West African Mining and Power Expo, and sponsored by Metso. Today's panel will uncover the opportunities that West Africa holds for the mining industry and unpack their understanding of some of the key trends, challenges, and opportunities in the sector across the region. Before we start, please note that the chat and the Q&A are available to you. Please post your questions in the Q&A and your comments in the chat. Both the Q&A and the chat are at the bottom of your screen. Please be aware that we are recording this webinar and will send the recording to you when it's available. We're also streaming the webinar live on YouTube and we'll share the link in the chat once it's available. So let's get started. Today's moderator is Olivier Barbeau, the managing partner at Moore Johannesburg and deputy chairperson at Moore South Africa. Olivier is a seasoned chartered accountant with over 2 decades of experience in corporate successful merger and acquisition transactions for both listed and unlisted companies across the African continent. Olivier's expertise also includes valuation, dispute resolution, due diligence investigations, transaction structuring, and M&A. He will facilitate the discussion with today's panel, which consists of Ahmed Nantogma, Acting CEO of the Ghana Chamber of Mines, Dominic Reby, Director for Europe, Middle East and Africa at Hexagon, Kweku Amankra, Territory Manager for West Africa at Metso, Eric Owusu, Territorial Manager for West Africa at Metso Ghana, and Joshua Mototi, Lead at Vortex Resources Mining Group. I'll hand over now to moderator Olivier Barbeau to start the discussion. Over to you, Olivier.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for that introduction, Shannon. It's a real pleasure to be with you today as we explore the future of mining in one of the world's most dynamic and resource-rich regions, West Africa. And we're fortunate that we have nearly 200 people registered and a powerhouse panel lined up. It's fair to say there's a lot of interest in the conversation, and for good reason. West Africa is not just rich in minerals, it's rich in potential, from the gold belts of Ghana and Mali to the vast bauxite fields of Guinea, and obviously the emerging lithium hotspots across the region. This is where the next wave of mining and growth is coming from. But unlocking that potential requires more than just resources. It requires vision, innovation, responsible leadership, and deep understanding of local context. Our discussion today is about just that, how we balance the opportunity and the responsibility, and we'll tackle everything from infrastructure and investments to ESG and innovation. So let's dive in, panelists. Ahmed, if we could potentially begin with you, from your perspective at the Ghana Chamber of Mines, how's the mining sector contributing to economic growth in West Africa? And are governments across the region doing enough to convert mineral wealth into long-lasting socioeconomic value?
Yeah, good afternoon and thank you for having us. As a chamber, we have been in existence for the past 100 years, and we have been coordinating and advocating for responsible mining within Ghana. And recently, we have also formed the ECOWAS Federation of Chambers of Mines, all in a bid to make sure that mining benefits West Africa. And then we streamline the policies across the sub-region. As we know, mining is very critical to the development of West African countries, especially even in Ghana. Mining is the highest foreign exchange earner. It employs a lot of people, a lot of technology transfer. It supports local content, also has a lot of employment within the region. So if you move across Ghana to Burkina Faso, you will find that it has the same kind of benefits, the key export earners, revenue generation, and infrastructure development. In Ghana, mining companies have built schools, roads, hospitals, all in a bid to open up the areas in which they mine and also to become relevant and meaningful to the communities around operations. And that is not far-fetched from other countries who also do similar things. So in a nutshell, mining and mining-related activities are very important to the economic and social development of the West African sub-region.
Ahmed, thank you very much for that context and that background. I want to pick up on something in particular that you spoke about, and that was infrastructure and infrastructure related. And Eric, if I could reach out to you next, perhaps from your point of view, from an engineering standpoint, what are the most frequent operational bottlenecks you would encounter across mining in West Africa, and how are companies adapting their strategies to overcome energy, water, and other logistical challenges that might be around?
Was that for me as well?
It's for Eric. He's just on mute at the moment.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
sorry
you.
about that. Thank you, Olivier.
Eric might be having some tech challenges there. Ahmed, did you want to jump in on that particular point? And panelists, if there are any contributions to any of the questions I asked, please feel free to respond.
Oliver, I can jump in as well if you want.
Thank you, Joshua.
I think Eric is back on there. So maybe we give Eric the chance to answer first, and I can jump in.
Over to you, Eric. We lost you for a second.
Okay, sorry about that. So the biggest challenge that we find in our region is the poor transport network that most mining companies that tend to get into our region to operate would face. And also, again, you mentioned on the power. That is something that government across our region is battling to make our power situation much better. So that if you want to talk about how the impact that these mining companies coming to our region will incur would be the money they spend on trying to generate power to run a smooth operation at their various sites. Okay, so that is actually having a big impact in terms of the spend of the mines. And these mining companies, you find most of them will try to fix roads, just hold roads just to get easy access to their various sites, which is also huge in terms of capital expenditure when they are about starting these operations. And to couple with that, you need a lot of compensations to offer to indigents who are living in the locality just to be able to pave the roads, to pave the way for you to construct your roads to get access to your site, which all impact these mines. Okay, so in a nutshell, I would say that indeed the infrastructural deficit that we have has a huge toll in terms of the very mining expenditure.
Thank you for that, Eric. Joshua, you want to add something to that? Would you like to elaborate or build on what Eric has just said?
Yeah, no, I can, Oliver, and thanks for the opportunity, and thanks to be on this panel. We used to say many years ago that the mining companies are purveyors of technology and infrastructure development. And that's very true in West Africa, in Africa for that matter, because we basically come into areas that are virgin, and we're the first. I remember back in the days when the old Ashanti, we were the first to pull mobile technology into Obuasi after it was introduced in Accra. So, I mean, even before Kumasi got it. All the mines that I've been involved with Newmont's Ahafo mine, Achim mine, the first electric power line, grid line was as a result of the mine being there. We had to construct that. So there is a lot you need to do if you're going to be developing a mine in West Africa, compared to spend time in Nevada and what it is over there. I mean, the base infrastructure is already in place. The road network is in place. Power is usually in place. Some services are usually in place. But in West Africa, in the larger Africa, you literally have to be the utility house, you have to be the transport and logistics firm, and you have to basically put all of those in place. So you need to have that at the back of your mind when you're coming into developing mines and mine infrastructure in these parts of the world.
Yeah, I mean, Joshua, that's an excellent point. But there's something in there that I picked up, and then that is the use of technology and how we would use technology in mining and overcoming some of those challenges. Dominic, if I bring you in on this particular point, and so with technology becoming a key enabler for efficiency and sustainability, from a Hexagon's point of view, where are you seeing the strongest appetite for innovation in West African mining space, and how are companies leveraging smart mining solutions to stay competitive? What are your insights?
So we at Hexagon, we really see a large demand for technology. It's not at all that because it's rather smaller mines. I'm comparing now to mines in West Australia or in Latin America, the big copper mines. A lot of the mines that we find in West Africa are maybe slightly smaller. However, the appetite for technology is huge. The growth that we see in technology is far above the overall growth for mining applications. So for us, it's a very attractive place to be. And that's also why, as an example, we have, in Accra, we have an office. Hexagon was 25 people, and these are amazingly well-educated people there. People think, well, let's bring in expats and let them take care of it. It's not at all necessary. If you think about Ghana, somebody mentioned before, Owazi, that was you, Joshua, fantastic mining school there. We find plenty of highly qualified people to look after the technology. And I find that something very encouraging also, that, there's a tremendous amount of talent in West Africa. It goes so far, people wouldn't believe it, but we send our experts from Ghana. They travel to the DRC, they travel to Saudi, they travel to Scandinavia to look after mines up there. So it's unbelievable the amount of knowledge that you can build up in West Africa that way.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Ahmed, I see you nodding your head vociferously with what Dominic was saying there. Is that your experience from the Chamber of Mines, this ability to go and knowledge share across the region?
Yes, that's true. Recently at Indaba, we met a lot of Ghanaians who were working in other West African countries and even as far as DRC. And most of them had been trained in the UMAT, that is the University of Mines and Technology in Takwa. And that university is sponsored by the Chamber in a lot of areas. We provide simulation services for them. They work within the mining companies for internships and working with the current and the newest technologies that are available. So I think it's, like you said, Ghana has a lot of skill and knowledge and technology. We are also innovative enough to apply what we get into the Ghanaian conditions. So I think in terms of technology-wise, Ghana and West Africa, we are quite catching up, and then we are moving to the future. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I see a lot of nodding of heads after that comment. And Kweku, if I could bring you in on this particular point, are investors watching West Africa closely, and or there's still a little bit of hesitation? And what are they most concerned about, if they are concerned, and what signals or reforms would perhaps unlock a bit of larger capital flow into this mining region, where we can get the spend behind developing these projects?
Oh yeah, in terms of foreign investment coming in, this has been a lot. We do have a lot of projects, like say for example, Metso has been involving this year, and there's some coming in next year. So there's definitely a lot of interest, despite all the most of the mines where they are located are quite remote. So you have the logistic challenges, and then to add another dynamics, some countries like in western part of Africa, Mali and the others, where there's a bit of some, how will I say it, some security issues. But despite all that, you still see, there's so much interest because there's so much potential in terms of the mining industry. The gold price has been steadily increasing. So you see there's more willingness on customers to actually get involved in this project. So yeah, it's definitely on the rise. Yeah.
Dominic, if I could direct that question a little bit more at you. I know you're not sitting in Africa at the moment. You're sitting in Switzerland. What's the perception there around investor appetite and investment trends into the West African mining market?
So within the mining industry, I think it's fairly accepted that West Africa is a very important place for mining. I mean, two examples, if you think about three examples. If you think about the huge Simandou project, I think just opening up that mine, I just read recently that's going to cost around $12 billion just to build that mine. So, I mean, and it's one of the best iron ore projects in the world that you can have. So, and that is money that's going to a big part, going to be invested and will stay in West Africa. So it's a huge investment. If I think about Joshua, you mentioned before Obuasi, the planned merger between Obuasi mine together with Tarkwa mine, it would give you about the fifth largest gold mine in the world. So it's people cannot just say, oh, it's West Africa and it's like we're just going to focus on the big mining districts. No, West Africa is a very serious mining district. I think people within the mining industry who know their stuff, they acknowledge it for that. And, we get competitive reports and data from the industry. And I just looked at that. The projects that are going on in West Africa. So anything that's kind of like grassroots, pre-feasibility, feasibility, all the way to construction. There's about 170 projects in West Africa. And that's about the same as in Southern Africa, where when people hear mining, that's usually what they think about, Southern Africa. So there's the equal amount of projects going on, which means investments, which means bringing in skills, developing people, hiring people, finding staff. No, it's a very attractive place for us, and I believe also for other miners.
It sounds like an exciting period for West African mining, the global interest in there. And one can't obviously ignore the whole ESG community angle, sustainability of mining in it. And Joshua, could I bring you in on this particular point? And I think we've got to a point where ESG is no longer just an optional issue. It's got to be front and center when developing projects. And in the West African context, what are the key environmental and social expectation mines must meet to maintain their social license to operate? And how are you as an organization approaching this strategically?
Yeah, I think, ESG is an essential imperative in West Africa. Probably more than most places I've been in the Australian outbacks where literally there is nobody around. There is no community where the mines are located. Same for Nevada and things like that. But here in West Africa, you have communities dotted around where the mines are. So for me, ESG is quite imperative to what mines can do and how successful they can be. How you integrate the community into your activities, whether it's in the provision of infrastructure, water, schools, hospitals, making sure that you provide alternative livelihoods for people that your mining activity displaces, etc. Now I'm even much bigger about community ownership and participation in the value that gets created, because I think that's an area where we as miners have to probably focus a lot more, because the fervor in the communities is to see that the resources that is under their feet is actually directly benefiting them. And to me, they're right. They're right to have those those kinds of expectations. So as miners, to me, in West Africa, ESG has to be front and center of everything you do. If you can crack the ESG problem, you will have the social license to operate. You will have a successful operation. So to me, it's more important than the operation side of things is easy. You have your trucks, you have your processing, you can check and monitor your daily production. You can have the technology that Dominic and the Hexagon folks provide us in fleet management. You can do all those wonderful things.
Yep.
But you will not be successful if you don't unlock the value that ESG brings. And that's where I think that we as miners ought to focus on in West Africa in particular.
Yeah, that's such an important point that you made there, Joshua. It's about developing and the communities around those projects benefiting from that development, whether it be the mine itself, the infrastructure that goes around with it. And Eric, maybe from a Metso perspective, how do you see that playing out, the whole ESG angle, the development of infrastructure around the mines? Eric? Quickly, you want to jump in for Eric there?
Yes. Okay. All right. Just go ahead. All right. Okay. So yes, definitely ESG is something that we as also Metso we also drive. I think it's not just us, but the customers we work in. For example, the Anglo Gold Ashanti, in Obuasi mines, very big on their.
Is it becoming a significant thing for them to include
exactly.
in your...
Yes. So whenever we make a proposal to some or to provide a solution, it must tie in with that one of those goals. So we try and do that. And as one of the panels mentioned, when it comes to resources, it's one of the ways that most of us on the service side, we can actually contribute to the ESG to ensure that wherever we are working in, there's enough resources that we are using locally. So within the 15 West Africa countries we are serving, we will try as much as possible to have there's a resource locally in country that we use to serve this customer. This way, we actually share their knowledge, and then we also try and partner with some of the local vendors in the country that are actually recommended by the customer. They have that confidence in them. So we actually want to use them as well, to serve those customers, to have that wider reach. In this way, we are actually contributing to these ESG goals for our customers.
Yeah, great. And Ahmed, if I had to change tact slightly around that and around regulatory certainty and industry challenges and all of those good things, you've worked closely with both government and the private sector in your role. And what do you see as the biggest policy or maybe regulatory gaps that might be limiting some mining development in the region, and what practical steps could we as an industry, because we engage with government, to help kind of bridge these gaps?
Yeah, thank you. In Africa or West Africa, a lot of anxiety and sometimes misunderstanding of the mining industry pushes some of the government to make some policies that are inimical to the growth of the sector. And we as a chamber sitting here, see that most of the time it's just about making more money from the industry, like taking more money, increasing taxes. But currently we are working through the IFEDCOM and to try and get government to understand that mining means more than just making rent from the industry. Mining contributes to infrastructure, as we have said. And even with this ESG, we say that, look, whatever you get from mining, we need to know how you use it. The utilization of the mineral resources is very critical. And the certainty in the policy framework is also very critical. For instance, and also with regards to exploration and how to give incentives to companies to do more exploration, to grow the pie so that we can all share. So policy uncertainty is one of the key things that affects investment, because an investor needs to know that I am safe, I have this arrangement or this agreement, and I'm going to government is going to honor its part of the agreement, just as mining companies do. Another thing is about security, provision of security for mining companies. Has been said, some of them are very remote areas, and they are prone to attacks by sometimes illegal miners and miscreants. Mining companies need to be assured that, look, government is with them and they will provide the security that they need. So basically, the policy certainty and security, and also the willingness of government to work with mining companies to grow the pie so that a lot more can be shared. These are some of the things that we talk about as a chamber, and one that will make investors feel that, look, when I come into West Africa, I'm going to be received very well, and I'm going to work with the state to grow my business and also to help the community develop.
Yeah, and are we making progress in that front? Do you think we're getting better at that as a region?
Yeah, I think we are making progress. Usually, with the political cycle, for instance, in Ghana, we just had a new government. And then, so with a new government, they come with new ideas and they are looking for more things. They just passed a growth and sustainability levy where mining companies are expected to pay 3% of their revenue to government. But we are talking to government about it just to see that, look, it's not just taxes alone that can grow the industry, but a lot more can be done to make sure that the industry is viable. And once it is viable, it will continue to pay more taxes, employ more people, use more local content. Last year alone, mining companies spent over $2.3 billion in local content. So all that money stayed in Ghana. Mining companies in Ghana return about 75% of their earnings in country. And this all helps to develop the country so that government can grow and mining companies can also grow. Thank you.
Eric, I see your hand is up there.
Sorry, guys, just traveling a bit over here. So, Olivia, you made mention of my name about the ESG topic. Just wanted to add that ESG is hugely linked to us all ensuring that we have a sustainable mining.
Yes.
One of the things that Metal we actually putting first in everything that we're doing now is to produce equipment that will give us a huge lower impact in terms of carbon footprint. Okay, so just also to tie in with the mining companies that we support at Metal. So as part of their goals, it's also towards going green, sort of, so that at the end of the day, we need to have a sustainable way of mining, which will, because we need to check that at the end of the day, it has an impact on our lives as people living on this earth. Okay, so we don't have any option. Meso is actually championing that seriously with trying to show to our customers whatever equipment or machines that we're supplying to them, how much is going to benefit them in terms of overall making the mining a green and a safer way of mining. So definitely it's a key thing for us to ensure that we have a sustainable mining by ensuring that our carbon footprint are lowered as much as possible.
Yeah, thank you for that, and I couldn't agree more with what you said there, Eric. Joshua, I see you've also got your hand up, and this is obviously a hot topic, the ESG angle of it.
Yes, no, I actually wanted to sort of buttress some of the points and probably add to what Ahmed said on the government regulatory environment. I think Ahmed is right when he says that governments, I mean, I'm not just talking about one government's focus in the West Africa region is around rent seeking. So for all of them, it's let's add the next levy on the top line. And usually it's on the top line, right? And if you add it on the top line, it's a tax. It's a big tax. And its value, the impact of that tax is more than the 3% that he's talking about. That 3% is probably on your profit is maybe close to 10%, right? But the focus of governments have been on rent seeking. I think that governments ought to have a better understanding of the industry. Unfortunately, most of them do not have a good understanding of the industry. The value, the true value you can get out of this industry in West Africa is the multiplier effects, right? It's the the infrastructure, the alternative jobs that gets created, is those what he calls local content, manufacturing that can be, developed on the back of the mine's consumption. If you can focus on those, you make more money than the top line 1%, 3%, 4%, whatever that they keep always going back to. Because at the end of the day, you must look at the viability of the operations. What you end up doing with the top line taxation is basically killing the chicken that is laying the golden egg. And I think it is out of a lack of understanding of our industry by our governments. The other thing that for investors in West Africa will want to have certainty with is the frequent changes in the regulations and laws. I mean, every government comes, they change a lot of things. They change in the middle of it and they expect you to comply with it. Not having certainty is not good for investment, and sometimes it's lost on our governments. The final thing is that of small scale or illegal mining. Small scale or illegal mining is out of hands in West Africa, and it's having a big impact not only on the environment, because there is no ESG at play in that side. They're damaging the environment, they're putting heavy metals in the waters that we are all drinking. They're destroying some of the agricultural base of West Africa, which will continue to be agricultural, etc. I think that solution, until we find a solution, governments work with stakeholders to find a solution to the so-called small scale illegal mining. I mean, it becomes an all play all, what we call all play all in Ghana parlance. Basically, no regulation. Anybody can come in and do what they like. That's what will happen in West Africa. And I think governments ought to engage more seriously with the chambers, with key stakeholders, to understand mining and implement the right regulation and laws for the industry, to develop it for what benefit it can bring to the society.
Yeah, obviously still lots of work to be done there. And one thinks of the region, one thinks about gold, one thinks about the bauxite deposits. We haven't got to the new gold rush. And Dominic, maybe I can bring you into the new gold rush. That's the critical minerals that are around. And as the world races to secure critical minerals for the energy transition, what role can West Africa realistically play in that? That's the first bit. And are we equipped technically, structurally, to become a reliable global supplier of lithium, rare earths, and other critical minerals? I think, are there lessons to be learned from the gold sector that we could be applying in this new realm?
Yes, so I think if you step back to the ESG, I agree with what the speaker said before. Also, don't forget, a lot of these mines operate in a very delicate ecosystem. So if you think about, especially Ivory Coast and Ghana, together the main place for cocoa beans worldwide, and these plantations are often directly next to a mine. So the big international miners, they really have to make sure they get along. They don't destroy the plantations next to them, where Joshua, you mentioned it, the artisanal small miners have less obligations to do that. And that would apply exactly the same for the new minerals, be it manganese projects in Ghana, be it bauxite projects in Ghana, be it Guinea has the biggest and largest bauxite deposits. There's even now they're exploring for uranium in Mauritania. Uranium is going to be unbelievably important for securing energy in the future. So I think there's a lot of deposits in West Africa that are not, when I say gold, just gold, because that's what most people think about when they hear West Africa. They think about gold. They do not think about vanadium, rare earth, lithium. All those things don't come to people's mind, but I think in the next 10 years, it's going to be very, very large.
Ahmed, could I bring you on the back of two things that I think have come out of the last two bits of communications, one from Dominic and the one from Joshua, and they first, if we have a look at the issue of small scale mining, what is the Chamber's view around small scale mining, and then follow on to that, what is the Chamber's view on where Ghana should be taking its policy around critical minerals?
Thank you. The Chamber actually supports small-scale mining. We support regulated and regularized and licensed small-scale mining, just as the laws in Ghana support them. What we have always talked against is the illegal miners who don't have any permits and they just go and mine everywhere. So we support small-scale mining. We have a relationship with the Ghana National Association of Small-Scale Miners, where we do introduce some of our health and safety policies to the association to also train their members. So we do support them. We do provide all the education and support that we can, because it employs a lot of people, because it generates a lot of, in Ghana, small-scale mining provides about 40% of our gold export coming from the small-scale mining sector. So it's a big thing. But because of the informality, government does not benefit directly, because now they don't even pay any royalties on whatever they produce. So we believe that there should be a proper structured way of handling the small-scale miners. That should be driven by exploration. Because most times they just go into the field, get somebody's land close to a cocoa farm or a river body, and they start mining. If they don't make a find, they just move on to the next place and abandon that area. So we believe that there should be exploration. When you do proper exploration, then you can delineate areas, say this is a small-scale mining area, this is a large-scale mining area, and then you can then provide policies and can regulate them. So that's what we are doing. That's how we are working with the Geological Survey Authority, and we are even working with the government of Ghana to try and take away the value-added tax, the VAT on exploration, especially on drilling and assaying. When you take away the VAT, then companies want to invest more in exploration, so that whatever information they get, it can be shared with government and they can be parceled out for licensed and regulated small-scale mining. So we are working with the association, also working for our ministry, as well as the Minerals Commission, to try and see that we can streamline it, formalize it, and provide the technical support that they would need. In that way, we can build a lot of capacity there, and we can improve their 40% to 50%, and also apply the ESG onto their activities as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Joshua, your comments around the small-scale mining and the illegal mining has certainly got our Q&A session going on the side. And if I can address a particular question straight at you that's come from one of the participants, and I'll read it to you, Joshua. And so this one comes from Emiliano, and it says, Joshua, you also highlighted the importance of the social license to operate for mining companies in West Africa. In practical terms, what actions or approaches do you believe are most effective in building a lasting relationship of trust with local communities?
Yeah,
very good question.
Thanks, very good question. I was actually trying to answer, typing it out for him, but I can verbalize my answer to Emiliano. Yeah, I think there is more that can be done. The companies do quite a lot on their own, really, because they're facing the fire, isn't it, with the communities. If there is a roadblock, they see it. Central government doesn't see it. I mean, central government's exerting of taxes and royalties, I mean, a very small fraction make it back to the community. I mean, if you look at the royalty distribution mechanism in Ghana, for example, I mean, very little comes back to the communities. And even if it comes in very irregularly. So, I mean, central government's taxes are probably used in other areas and not necessarily for the community. But if you're talking about real social license, it is with the communities. So the mining companies are having to do above and beyond what government receives from them by making sure that they have foundations. So all the big companies have foundations, and those foundations are actually reserving some money in the checks for the communities to use for their local development. So provision of water, medical facilities, developing local businesses, etc., etc. They're using those foundations. I've found that the foundations have been truly very impactful. Where we still need a bit more work, two areas where we still need a bit more work to get social license is one in creating alternative jobs. Every community member wants to wear the yellow uniform or the orange uniform that the mining company wears. But the mine can only employ at most 3,000, 4,000 if you add employees and contractors. But alternative jobs, what I talked about as the multiplier effects, can be 40 times that. We've done studies with INSEAD that shows that the multiplier effects are 40 times. So how do we unlock the value of that multiplier effect for the community? It is those little businesses. It is, it is manufacturing. In Takwa, we're looking at how can we use the rubber that is quite common in the Western region to, manufacture rubber products that the mines can use. It is those type of things that will create, in my view, more lasting and sustainable value. The last one I would say, and that's something I've been looking at since I moved off from Goldfields and started to run this Vortex, is about how to get the community to participate on the equity side of things, and how do you create, if you like, it's not just sovereign wealth, but community wealth. And it could be a 1%, whatever percentage equity in the mines that exist in those communities. And the value of the cash flows could be much more significant than the foundations, the monies we put aside for the foundations. And that wealth can then be reinvested into the multiplier jobs that I'm talking about for the communities. I've been sort of thinking and exploring that a lot more further, and looking at what has happened in South Africa in the platinum area with some of the, call it Royal Bafokeng. If you remember Royal Bafokeng, that model has been quite interesting to me, and I've been exploring that. How can we create that kind of community wealth, not just sovereign wealth, in the community, so that they see that the value of the resources underneath their feet is actually retained with them and not just going to central government and there is nothing coming back to them.
Yeah, that's a great example that you've raised there, where a community has benefited off the resources that sit underneath their feet, as you say, and it created a sustained ecosystem around them that has many other businesses related to it. Dominic, your hand was up there, and I apologize for not getting back to you sooner.
Yeah, no problem. I just wanted to add on a little bit, just that, kind of a view from the outside, from Europe. Very often you see in the media vast landscapes which are destroyed, and then at the same time, the same media article, they'll be writing very negatively about the Newmonts, the Barricks, the Goldfields, the Rio Tintos. And it's like, no, it's actually exactly the opposite. It's actually these large companies that have very stringent ESG programs and do their best to live up to them. And it's actually the small and artisanal miners which do that a little bit less, or try to get by. Not all of them. Some do very good jobs, but it is a problem. I see it from our side. Take an example, the safety of the worker. These large mines all put in huge efforts into training their people. There's hospitals, there's schooling, there's simulators. They put in technology on the mining machines to protect their people. These are all things which you do not see at smaller mine sites, of course.
Yeah, great. Ahmed, your hands up.
Yes, yes, just to buttress the point raised by my former president, Josh, about the community development. Here at the chamber and working through ECOWAS and the IFEDCOM, we are looking at a situation where we'll have a law on the utilization of mineral royalties, a specific law that will dictate how royalties should be used. So it will then be such a way that, look, you earmark a certain portion of the royalty going to the community over a period of time and attach a specific project. So that if you take Takwa, for instance, Takwa has a lot of mines. So if you say, look, 10% of the royalties will come to Takwa over the next 10 years, and that will be geared towards infrastructure development. In that case, the wealth will come back to the community. They will see examples of what the royalties are being used for, and some of the agitations will go down. Otherwise, currently, the money all goes into state government, into the consolidated fund, and the person sitting right at the door of the mine will not benefit from it directly. So these are some of the things that we are pushing to make sure that the communities benefit from the mines that are their doorsteps. And that way we can reduce the tensions and also let people appreciate that mining can be a catalyst for development. Thank you.
Yeah. It's remarkable how the level of optimism actually on this panel about what is out there. And we started off our conversation right in the beginning saying that with the West African mining story it's currently being written. It's creating its own path. It's open for business. There's so much out there. Panelists are mindful that our time is running along quite quickly here. And I'd like to go to each one of you and starting off with Ahmed. If you can give our audience a bit of a summary of this discussion. What are the key takeaways that you would like them to take away from this conversation, from each one of your own perspectives, wearing your own specific hats? Ahmed, could I start off with you on that?
Yeah, okay. Yes, so thank you. I think West Africa is very ripe for business, especially mining business. We do have a lot of mineral resources that are diversified across the region. But what should be done is that it should be done in partnerships, in a mutual trust and open, transparent partnerships, so that we know that, look, governments need rent, mining companies are also in business. But if there's transparency in the discussions, then we can help each other along the line. The animosity and the mistrust is what is creating the tensions. So we believe that there should be transparency and openness. And if you apply the ESG principles, you obey the environmental issues, the social issues, but the governance issues of the sector is also very important. So I think that working through the ESG framework, mining companies, the West African communities and government can continue to invest in West Africa and unlock the potential so that mining, as I said, can become a catalyst for development and infrastructure provision in the sub-region. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much for that, Ahmed. Kweku, could I go to you next from your perspective? What are the key takeaways you take away from this conversation that you'd love our audience to be thinking about? What have you thought differently following the input that you've heard today? Kweku, we don't have your audio at the moment.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Perfect, go for it.
Okay, my apologies about that. Yeah, I'm saying that there's so much, the key word is there's so much potential. West Africa, there's so much interest and there's so much opportunities. For those who are on the service company, we welcome you to actually take the interest or move in that direction. But like our panelists, most of the panelists have said, it's not just running it your own way. There are a set of guidelines that governs all what we do. And, ESG is now number one drive today. So whatever you want to do to get involved in it, you must ensure that you're contributing to the community in the best possible way that actually is, beneficial to everyone, not just, destroying the resources, but to ensure that there's bigger buy to everyone, everybody benefits. So yeah.
Just before I let you disappear on that, I've got one question in here that directed specifically at you, Kweka, and I'm going to direct it at you. And the question again comes from Emiliano, who's obviously thought this through quite carefully. It says, from a Mezzo perspective, AI, how does AI feature in the work that you do in the mining sector?
Yeah, so actually AI is actually now getting pace in how we try and address customer inquiries and give them solutions. So it's something we actually introduced, and we actually started the program somewhere last month. We are trying to extend across the whole Metso, let's say various Metso install bases. So obviously, from a Metso perspective or from a service perspective, we are here to serve most of the customers. So we have to try and predict where AI comes in, try to predict where the customer will be. However, we're not going to take away the dialogue, because it's always, you need to communicate, have that discussion with the customer. But AI is actually going to help us run on the side to say, okay, we expect the customer to be here or at this particular stage, but so how far are we from that? Whilst we're having a conversation with the customer, hey, Mr. Customer, we think you're going to need this, you're going to be here. So that's what we're trying to complement that. And I think we hope by the end of the year, we should have this fully kick it out, and we hoping to see the result. So yeah, AI is definitely the way to go for us. Yeah.
Thank you for that answer, Kweku. Eric, some of your key takeaways from today's conversation, some messages you want to impart?
Yeah. So my key takeaway definitely is there's actually a boom or a surge in this mining sector in West Africa by and large. We do know that there are challenges that mining companies encounter, but just to mention some few political instabilities, for example, happening in the region, one of the challenges I must say. But then if you look at the overall impact on the livelihoods of people and the economy, we definitely must find ways to embrace and then make this mining business a better enterprise.
Thank you very much, Eric. And Dominic, could I get to you next?
Yes, I think what I take away is that I think we all were able to hear that the mining sector in West Africa is very well advanced. It's not a small a small sector. It's a very important sector for the countries. There's lots of local talent. I go back, again, we were talking about the mining school of Tarkwa. We bump into people from Tarkwa all over the world at mine sites. Mine managers, everywhere you walk into them, oh, I'm from Tarkwa. And that's really nice and refreshing to see. So it's a mature industry. It's a mature region. We did hear that ESG is very important. Many points made, but it's also a very advanced industry. Before we heard about AI, the question about AI, I'd just like to add on, we even have a customer in West Africa that's using our latest technology that's brand new from us, and it uses AI to determine how much the gold ore moves during the blast. So, and there's not many sites worldwide that use that. So again, they are at the forefront. They're not at all in the back of the queue when it comes to those type of things. So it's very refreshing to see that in West Africa.
Great. And then, Joshua, you have the privilege of having final word on this from our panel members.
Well, thank you. It's truly been interesting conversation. West Africa is ready for business, but it's also ready for the right business. And I think in the gold space, there's a lot we all can do as participants in the space to live true value in there. There is a question I don't think we've addressed yet by Adam Glyman. If you don't mind, I'll just address that very shortly, where he talked about the commitment of mining companies to net zero carbon emissions and the rest. I can assure Adam that mining companies, all of us, do have, if you like, net zero emission objectives, right? And we're working assiduously towards that, either in converting into electric drives in our haul trucks, improving using AI, for example, in our fleet management, as Dominic talked about, in blast movements, etc., etc. There is a lot that we are doing in that space. Like Dominic said, we're not waiting for the technology to be fully developed before we get on. We are actually purveyors of the technology. We're in the forefront of some of these trials. So I want Adam to be rest assured that, the mining industry as a whole, and also in West Africa, is looking at ESG front and center, and making sure that we play our part in truly living value, enduring value for the communities and governments and the societies that we operate in.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Joshua. From our side, it's been an absolute pleasure having this conversation, gentlemen. It's been thoroughly entertaining, and I think we've touched on some really important topics affecting mining in West Africa. So I want to thank each and every one of you for your contributions. It's clear that the mining story in West Africa is currently being written, and that's an exciting time to be. The opportunity is there. The responsibility is real. The future is there. What it needs is the right leadership. It needs the right innovation. But the future looks bright from where I see it. And from my perspective, as the more global's representative for mining, these conversations excite me as someone who travels up and down the continent looking at mining products. So let's continue to dive into the conversations forward with purpose, with integrity, with a view to building something meaningful and something that lasts. And so, on that note, our time is basically up. Shannon, I'd like to hand back to you.
Thanks so much. Thank you all for joining us today. Before we wrap up, I'd like to extend my gratitude to our moderator, Olivier Barbeau, and guest speakers, Ahmed Nantogma from the Ghana Chamber of Mines, Dominic Reby from Hexagon, Kweku Amankra from Metso, Eric Owusu from Metso, and Joshua Mototi from Vortex Resources Mining Group. If you're interested in hearing more about the Wampex conference and exhibition, please visit the website at wampexwestafrica.com. And with that, I'd like to bid you all farewell. Thank you so much for your time, and goodbye.